What like apps or processes or workflows do you think is going to be irrelevant in the next 6 to 12 months?
Welcome to Fire Talks by Tech Wing Bites. I'm Clint. I've built software, led teams, and now a founder, helping builders who are ready to make the leap, but can't quite see the path yet. Every episode is one conversation closer to clarity on ownership, execution, and momentum.
Hey, I'm Tony Brooms, CEO, co-founder, Ola Billy. I've been doing some things in a lot of different spaces. So, it's going to be fun just kind of talking about some more AI stuff. So,
Wonderful. Thank you. Corey?
So I am Corrales Cachola. Corrales is my. I have two names. Corey is what I go. I've switched it different times, so people are confused. But Corrales is my name, but Corey is what I go by. And so I'm a strategic advisor for founders, especially consultants and small organizations like training organizations. So banking, small banks are one of my niches, specifically training bank trainers in the education space for banks. So helping them navigate the AI space. But what I'm focused on and really fascinated with is this idea of I call it our human software, and I use my journalism skills to extract your source code from your head and align that with AI systems, and to basically connect this into a operating system, a cognitive operating system. So that's kind of what.
All right, thank you. I want to make sure I say this right. Corrales.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, David.
Yeah, so my name is David Seaholm, founder of Outdoor Guides Inc. and former software executive or technology executive for the last 15 years or so. That's basically my background. So,
thank you, David. So I'll kick it off in this agentic age where we're constantly building. We have AI agents building for us, not only for the sending, but also receiving. I think it's important to understand as builders, like, what are we building for? First, we got to get the project done. But when it's done and it's beautiful, who is actually going to use it? With Google just releasing their command line interface for Google Workspace, I just see more and more companies taking on that objective. And of course, like we talked about the last time, if AI is doing everything, what are we what are we building for? What are we gonna do anymore? So I just want to open up the conversation with that and kind of see what you guys think about. Like, so sort of the big question is, what are we building for? Are we building for humans now, user interface, or is it just all going to be for the AI?
let me start because I already got a kind of idea around this.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about designing AI or doing that for command line, that's only because it's closer to the machine code, right? We're still designing for humans. At the end of the day, we're still going to be, and what those interfaces are going to look like are going to be different for sure. I mean, obviously, we're talking about getting into potentially AR space, VR space, but at the end of the day, it's still at the service of humans. So yes, the CLI for agents will be a thing just because it's going to be one less layer to have to deal with for the agent. But almost every product we're talking about here, still at the end, is going to be for a person.
yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Tony. So the end consumer is always going to be a person, right? I think that to Clint's point, though, how the consumer or the person is consuming that information is going to change slightly. And I think that the most important piece of this is, as a business owner, how do you want it consumed, right? Like, what are the rules of interaction for agents with your service? And that's what we have the opportunity to build.
So I approach this from a problem focused standpoint rather than, I think it's actually a very difficult question to ask. Is it for humans or who are we building for? Because that gets into just a lot of philosophical debates, frankly. And I find that the binary choice between human or machine, all it does is it gets into very toxic conversations very quickly, because the pro AI people are always like, you know, like us will argue about the efficiencies and automations and all the great things AI can do. And then the pro humans will argue that that's, because the complication, what you quickly get into is agentic gets into agents doing the work. So if you say, well, it's for the human, right? Well, the agents, you're actually appealing more to agents more and more. So are you really building for humans, or are you building for agents? At the very end, I guess you could say, well, we're building for humans at the end of the day, but
Right.
this becomes very complicated. And so I try to sidestep that whole thing and reframe it by saying, we're here to solve problems, period.
Right.
And that means I'm talking big problem. I'm talking climate change problems. I'm talking economic level narratives. That's where we have to go with this, because it's the only way that you can justify using an augmented AI human connection in my book, because those problems are so complex. We need AI pattern matching and AI machine learning and all that stuff to basically augment with the human. Basically, whatever problem cannot be solved by either one of them alone is what I like to frame it, because that makes a lot more sense, and it sidesteps a lot of this, like, are you building for humans or machines? I don't really care, because you can see Amazon is, and a lot of companies are going more automation of machine. So they're not building for humans. There's no human in the loop even. So
Right.
it's not even correct. So it is more correct to say parts of it are we want all machines at this piece. And then at this piece, we want some human in the loop. That's a system to me. So I look at more as systematic, I guess.
So you talking about like the different pieces. So some pieces could be fully autonomous,
Yeah,
fully
that's fine.
automated, but then some pieces. Well, for those pieces that has a human in the middle. For example, someone says, "Hey, I've built an app," right? Well, that app is more likely for human, because right, you could slide, you could do right. The human is in that loop, right? And a lot of the apps I see people building these days, they're building for a human, and then I turn around and then Cloud Code says, "Hey, I can do that."
Exactly. You're
Right.
building for the agent now, actually. That's where it gets complicated.
I think, yeah, I think that in theory, all of that is correct.
Mm.
That the agent can do the things, or the model can do the things. But in reality, that is not the case. Like, you have to have a human in the loop. And I think the best way that I've heard this described is that large language models. By the way, I have a very big problem calling this stuff AI. It's just not. Just
I told you.
People brain.
throw that out there, because we've never met each other before, Carlos, but that's kind of one of my sticks there.
That's fair.
Yeah, so in the way that this stuff is built, and the limitations that we have with power, that we have with memory, manufacturing, etc., this is not a problem that we're going to get to where it is good enough to not have a human in the loop for probably the better part of a decade, unless there is some massive breakthrough, which there isn't even a concept of how to make that breakthrough today. So never mind like actually putting it into production. So there's going to be a human in the loop for a very long period of time, and that human in the loop is force multiplied. And so you're going to see if that person is really good at what they do, then you're going to see a lot of productivity and a lot of good out of it. If that person is bad at what they do, you're going to see a whole lot of slop pushed out through the large language model. And it's going to be that way. So, I mean, I think that that's something that people need to come to terms with. It's not about, at this point in time, it is not about getting rid of people. It is about how do we make you more efficient at what you do, right? And there's something that you can do that you're really good at. Let's focus on that and get you into a large language model and a system, as you described it, that works for you.
Right. So
Yeah.
so we can agree then UI ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, no. I mean, even when we're talking about a system is only designed for whoever gains the benefit of it, right? And at the end of the day, most systems are benefiting some sort of humans along the way, along the line. Right.
Absolutely. You know, taking it back to what Corey was saying then, we have a big system. Some things is autonomous. It doesn't need, you know, humans, right? And then other things do. I see it this way, but I'm posing the questions. Do we see less and less user interfaces with settings and slides and stuff? And do we see now, because we have things like our Claude, which the interface, and you can say, go fix my calendar, go do this. Before we would have to click the settings box, slide, blah blah blah. So then is it less? Do you see? I feel this way, that it's less UIs, like less UI functionality, and more, but more function that's just hidden for the human.
I think it depends on the outcome, because it's always going to be about a specific outcome. Like yes and no. Like you might have that if there's a lot of human in the loop stuff, but in other systems, like the full supply chain is not going to be reliant on that UI. But so it really depends on the outcome that you're after. And so if your end outcome requires that, sure, like you will have a lot of that human interface stuff. But if it's like, oh, wait a minute, the system is, the agents don't really care about all that shit,
Right.
and they can just bypass all that. We don't have to waste our time building UIs for humans at this point in the segment, in the supply chain. Maybe at the end point, the final, the final mile, the last mile. Yeah, we need that special UI. Let's get our human centered designers in here. Yeah, but over here, yeah, we don't need that, right? So it's all system design thinking in my mind, and outcome driven.
Well, yeah, I can see that. I'm gonna walk through a specific scenario with you here in a second about the way people consume information, but then I want to challenge Tony to address his product that he builds in the same fashion. So I was having a conversation with somebody that I work with regularly about their day-to-day job, and they were describing they're a mid-level programming manager or engineering manager over a bunch of software developers, and a big part of their job is taking information that is available inside of one system, putting it into an Excel spreadsheet to present to the next level up. Okay. Then that next level goes and presents, and they have a very specific way that they want it done, color coding and all sorts of other fun things that if it's not perfect, then they come back to them and tell them to fix it. Then it goes to the next level up, and that person wants to consume it inside of a PowerPoint slide set. So they get to they get, after it's approved, they get to transfer all of their work and formatting and everything else over to another system. Because people have very specific ways that they want to consume their information, right? That's what they're used to and how they want to consume it. I don't think that that's going to go away. I think that we're now seeing another way that people like to consume some of their information sometimes, and that might be through interaction with a large language model. They might want Claude or Chat GPT or whatever to go out and fetch that information for them, present them with their options, and then move forward that way. The challenge for us, or at least for myself and Tony, is how do we control that information space, right? The user experience side of that, because we need that information presented to the end user in a very specific way so that they understand their options appropriately, instead of trying to rely on the large language model to present it appropriately. And I think that's where we start to see we're building for the large language models and not necessarily for just the user interface at this point in time. But it's the same problem. It's a user experience problem instead of just a user interface problem.
So I want to ask a question on your wording, right? Because when I said in an interface, I'm thinking interactions.
Mm-hmm.
What you just described to me sounds more of dashboard, presentation layer.
Yes, so to some extent, right? But like, so I'll use my company as an example, right? Yeah. I provide people with the opportunity to go out and book outdoor guides of various different fishing, whatever.
Right.
I need for them to be able to make the correct decision for themselves. I need certain information presented in a certain way and boxed off, because I have gone out and done the research to help the things that people want to know or need to know to be able to appropriately make that right decision for themselves. That needs to be presented to the large language model in a way that it says, okay, this is the information I'm going to present to the people, and how they should consume it and how they should be able to think about making their decision. I might know as a large language model, because I have information about the way this person operates, that I can adjust some of that, but it needs to be within bounds of what I'm defining, right? Mm-hmm. And that's part of what you're able to do through I'm forgetting the term right now. We constantly talk about them, Clint. MCP servers, right? Yeah. So you can provide that MCP that kind of gives that context space for being able to define what that looks like for the end user and for the large language model to present to people. So I said I wanted to get Tony's perspective on that, because he has a product that kind of has the same challenges.
Yes. So with Allability, it's especially the invoicing estimate part of Allability.
A quick introduction of the
app. Huh?
Yeah, give a quick introduction of the app.
Oh yeah. So Allability, it's a way for people to be able to do invoicing estimates and any kind of payment requests. Do it remotely, and also be able to do it through text messaging and just any online kind of like vertical path, right? So when we're talking about kind of like creating the guardrails around how the LLM will essentially give you back your input and output, yes, it's a lot of heavy context. I have to put in a lot of context around it. And also, I'm starting to look into doing some evals just so that when I'm testing the LLM, that it will give me output in a fashion that I'm expecting it to. Mm-hmm. It's rough going just because LLMs are designed to be, especially when you have the temperature set to a way something and the p-values and stuff, we set it so that it needs to be able to interpret a lot of different inputs and still give you out a relatively structured output. Mm-hmm. So I've been utilizing a lot of different guardrails not only within the LLM, but guardrails within the code as well. Mm-hmm. So that when someone's speaking to it, well, the first thing I do is I redact like personal information, like before it even gets to the LLM. Like that's so that I'm not potentially leaking anything to anyone, or to the whichever LLM I'm using at the moment, which changes from time to time. But in order to get that structure down, I have to give it that. I have to make sure that, and I've told it, the LLMs multiple times, this is the structure I need you to return after you've accepted this query. this is the output. It has to have this output. If it doesn't have this output, you don't work.
Right.
And there's a little feedback loop that's outside the LLM. So when it gets the output, it doesn't see that. It's like, hey, you didn't do this right. So there's a loop going on. It slows me down. Luckily, it doesn't slow me down too much, but
Right.
it does make it so that, and I've tested this a couple times where I saw someone, I forget where I saw it, but they were talking about context injection, prompt injection, and just kind of like
As a
doing,
issue,
huh?
they were talking about it as a security issue.
Yeah, it was a security issue. Yeah, it was a security issue. And I ran my mind through some of those scenarios, and luckily nothing leaked. And actually, it tells you I can't do that.
Right.
So that's actually been, fingers crossed, one of the better things as far as from a design standpoint that came out of this.
So like just both of y'all's scenarios to me, it's like it's a presentation layer that forces the user to interact. Yours more on the text level, David more on it's a camping, right? So here's the guide, right? So it's like, oh, this is interesting. So the user has to interact with that. So as a result, your interfaces, both interfaces is different, but it's really about the user perspective, like you forcing them to act.
Yeah.